All right, peace, family, peace. If you can hear me, let me know. We thank you all for joining in to another segment of I Have a Testimony. And this is your brother Willie Muhammad. And as usual, before we get in to our interview today, we want to just go over some brief announcements. Just checking to make sure that you all can hear me. Thank you, Brother Samuel, who said we can. All right. So for those who are in, we thank you for taking the time out to join us today. We're going to have our brother from the West Coast, from San Diego, formerly known as Brother Hugh, but also now known as Brother Abdul Waliullah Muhammad. And we're just so excited about this interview. We'll just get right to it once we get through these announcements. So as for those who always come on, you know that I always start off talking about what's at why we actually do these interview series. And it has a purpose. It has a purpose for right now, where we can learn about one another, because we walk amongst one another, but we really don't know one another's story. But it's also so in the future, so we can begin to start storing up these testimonies about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for those down the line, to bear witness that we don't allow the enemy to write a story about our man in our midst. So I want to read from this quote. It says, "I write you from my prison, a prison without bars that has been made for me because of the passion for the truth and justice out of which I speak, and the propaganda that makes me appear to many as anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-Semitic, and anti-gay. None of these names accurately describe who I am," the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says. He says, "I hope that you will open your heart to what I'm writing, notwithstanding the prison from which I am writing." So we do these testimonies, brothers and sisters, to further help to break the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan out of these mental prisons that some people may have in their minds of him as a result of this false propaganda. And the more I study what the enemy puts out about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I'm really not surprised that there are some that have a negative view of the minister. Now, so I won't blame them for that negative view. But once we present you with the truth, and if you still hold on to that negative view, then that's another situation that we have to have. And this is why it was so important, and why we're here. Want to give shouts out to all of those who participated in this social media campaign that made this guy, DJ Vlad, change his title of this video that he did, and also edit the video out of the false accusation that he made of our man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So thank you all who participated in that. So going further, as I talked about how these testimonies have been found to be very beneficial to people. We're seeing that 90% of the people say that it helps them in their faith and it helps them as a believer. We're also showing that over 90% of the people are also saying how these testimonies, in addition to this, that these testimonies have also helped them to gain a greater understanding of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that, as I said, that is the goal. The scripture says that Satan was defeated, or the dragon was defeated, by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimony, right? So we all have a testimony. That's just talking about some people who watched the previous testimonies, talked about how the testimonies have strengthened me even more in my faith and conviction that no matter what is going on, I'm following the right man and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and that the Nation of Islam will live on. Also, many of them touched on struggles in a triumphant and very relatable way. See, we learn from one another's testimonies, brothers and sisters, and we, sometimes the struggles that we go through in this journey to become one with Allah, the lessons that we learn, if we have the courage to share those lessons, it helps others, because we're all going to have our ups and downs as we walk through this journey. Go further. So for those who have not, please subscribe to our mosque YouTube page. It's at mosque46av.com. You can go and do that right now. Or you can follow us on our mosque Instagram page at mosque_46. Would appreciate it and ask others to do. One of the benefits of subscribing to our YouTube page, you have access to this playlist. And this is a playlist that you can use to hurl truth, excuse me, at falsehood, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about on July the 4th, right? This is talking about how with the everything you need to battle against them, talking about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is anti-Semitic, brothers and sisters, is on this playlist. And we're working on this playlist, He Killed Malcolm X, right? Everything that you need to battle against those who say the minister said this, the minister said that. No, here's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words and explanation about that critical event, sensitive event in the history of the Nation of Islam. Is right here for you to actually get it. As we get closer, as we always talking about, if you are in need of prayer or someone in your family is in need of prayer, please submit your name and your information so we can add you to our prayer list. And we have some prayer warriors here in the city of New Orleans who are praying on the behalf of those who've been affected by COVID and just overall life issues. If you have the opportunity, brothers and sisters, we encourage you, we plead to you to share our flyer, to help get the word out that we are in the process of trying to burn our mortgage here in the city of New Orleans. So please send word out and give a donation. You know, we're trying to get 163 people to give $1,000. So please put the word out and send it to your friends, your rich friends who you may know. And inshallah, on next Sunday, we have our sister, I don't want to butcher up her name, but I'm going to try, Sister Nayyirah Muhammad. She's going to be on. Inshallah, this will be on next Sunday. So tune in, spread the word to come and hear the mighty testimony that our sister will be giving. And also, we had to postpone it on last Thursday, but we're going to do it on this Thursday, inshallah. We want to talk about diabetes and the COVID-19 and the Black community. And we want to address this subject with the guests that we have. We have our student regional minister, Brother Abdul Halim Muhammad, who was once also a guest on this show, and he gave his testimony where you can go and check out on our YouTube page. He will be here. And we also have our doctor, Brother Dr. Akili Muhammad. And this is a Southwest region of the Nation of Islam initiative put on by one of the ministries of health, but it's titled Victory and Wellness and Nutrition Initiative. So make sure you tune in on next Thursday. We, inshallah, will go live. But today, what we have, brothers and sisters, we have our brother with us. So let me get ready to stop sharing the screen and we can get right on down to this interview and I can bring our brother on, all right? Bring our brother on. Let me get him ready. There he is. And there I am, trying to work on this thing, and we're getting it ready with this light. And we thank everybody else. You all see where he is. Look at that dynamic background. This man he got the pictures. The pictures are blocking the waterfall. He got a waterfall in his backyard. You see a little of it. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam, my dear brother Willie. How are you?
I'm fine by Allah's grace, man. And we are so excited. I've always, prior to the COVID, we were making plans on you and your family coming here to the city of New Orleans, where we would have conducted this interview live and in person. But Allah is the best knower. And one of the benefits of this COVID thing is that it has gotten us to start using this digital format. And as a result of it, we're able to expose more inside and outside the Nation of Islam to these dynamic interviews. So we're going to get right to it, my brother. So we start off first. Can you share with those who are listening and viewing, how did you first become introduced to the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad? And then what made you decide to join?
Oh, wow. Thank you, Brother Willie. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting word of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Those words simply mean peace be unto you. My dear Brother Willie, it was, first of all, let me thank you for your show. I've watched many of the testimonies, and I'm just always learning so much over the couple of years that you've been doing them. But particularly these last few weeks, I've got an opportunity to tune in, not to all, but to many of them. And it's just been tremendously and phenomenal. So I just want to thank you for that and for your help and service to our nation there in New Orleans. You and I have been colleagues for many years, and have worked on some initiatives together. So it's always an honor to be with you, my brother, my friend, and my colleague in this journey to Allah and helping the Messiah. So I want to thank you first and foremost. I'm grateful to Allah for being on this show. I first came to know of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. It's interesting. Before, let me say, the wind have picked up somewhat in the backyard. I don't know why. So hopefully, I won't have to move these pictures that they won't fall.
Yes,
But I
sir.
first got introduced in 1982 to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan while I was at University of Fredonia. And the first person that I heard to teach Islam was a brother by the name of Brother Dis, who really was a brother that helped to nurture me in Islam in 1982. And there was a brother Halim Muhammad, a minister, one of our student ministers in the Nation of Islam, not currently over a city, but still a great resource for us in the nation. And he was Brother Donald at the time, and we were going to the same university. And Brother Dennis came to Fredonia. I was already somewhat of a revolutionary. I love Fidel Castro. I'm born in the country of Jamaica, which gained its independence in 1962. And so my goal was always to go back and to lead Jamaica out of the grips of, I didn't call it white supremacy, but racism, but to just get Jamaica to freedom, because I saw, and now after being in the Nation of Islam, understood what happened, what I saw the young boy that took place in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean and Africa, that many times those of us that live in the United States may not know, but how America destabilized the independent move of the Caribbean, in particular Jamaica, which and where I was born. So in 1982, I was planning to go back home, and Jamaica had just gotten out of an election that was so tumultuous, and we had seen such high bloodshed in the election in 78 and in 80, and we had the killings in Jamaica that made news throughout the world. And it was due to the involvement of the CIA and the United States government and the hatred of our brother and our friend Fidel Castro in Cuba, and where they started a propaganda campaign that Jamaica was going to turn communist, and so scared the populace and the population in Jamaica. At that point, the CIA was bringing in guns. I say this, and I get back to how I got involved, because this is an important part of my story, my life with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and my testimony, because if it was not for him, I would be dead today. I'm almost sure of it, in more than one way. And so as Jamaica came out that time period, Bob Marley, which was my first teacher in his music, and the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, two Jamaicans, he said, Rasta don't work for no CIA. It's a rat race. Back in those days, the United States government, particularly CIA, was recruiting artists to go around the world, but want them to take their message. But Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and Third World and others just would not do that. And so, of course, Peter Tosh was eventually murdered. Bob Marley was attempted assassination, and eventually they killed him through over radiation. The similar and same thing they try to do to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with over radiation. But we thank God that he is the messenger of God. And the test, as he said on the 4th of July, is that one way they test to see if you're a true messenger in the quote unquote Jewish tradition is to poison you and see if you survive. So our messenger, our leader, the servant of God, he survived, and we have him today, knowing him to be the messenger of God. And so I was a very strong revolutionary in 1982. I love Fidel Castro. I was a fighter for the liberation. And it was very important to me for South Africa, who was under apartheid at the time, which basically slavery. Apartheid is a pretty word, but it was slavery that our people were still under in 1990. So when I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1982, I wasn't looking for religion, but I heard the warrior in him. And let me back up real quick, and I don't want to take much time on this. In 1982, Brother Dennis came to my university. Of course, I was the big fool on campus, but they call it the BMOC, the big man on campus, right? I had the best weed, I had the best parties, and everything else like that going on in Fredonia. And so I was partying while I was at college. So Brother Dennis came, and the journey started for me in 1982. Brother Halim, Brother Donald, and I developed a friendship and a brotherhood, developed the Black Student Union, which I became a part of. And in 1983, we brought the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to Fredonia. But I heard him actually in 1982, in October of 82 at University of Buffalo Clark Gym is where I first heard him. When I tell the story, I was pretty high on some good sense of million when I went, but I started changing my life. Not that night, but after the minister came to Fredonia in 1983 during Black History Month, I started to change my life. I started quit smoking publicly. Didn't quit smoking at the time, just quit smoking publicly. I wouldn't engage in certain behavior, and we agreed to stop the partying. And I started my journey in 1983 in the Nation of Islam. That's how I started. Brother Dennis, Brother Halim, and then in 1983, I heard the minister. And all the way until I graduated in 1985 from Fredonia, I went to many events with the minister, traveled with Halim in many places as a student, as a part of the student government from Fredonia. That started my journey in the Nation of Islam.
Wow. And you say you were the big man on campus, the BMOC. How did people respond to your transformation from going to the guy that was the popular man, throwing the parties, selling the weed, and now you just is Muslim now?
Well, I didn't go straight. There was a process. I gave you the whole
well, like, I mean, eventually you changed though. So how did they respond to that?
They saw the change because I quit actually selling weed, and then I also stopped having parties on campus. When I moved on campus, we started having them at my home. But then we got very engaged with the Black Student Union, so they didn't see the Muslim Waliullah, or then they know me as Brother Hugh. What they saw was the what I would call the nationalistic aspect. You know, they saw the social construct of me first in the Nation of Islam, because a lot of people don't realize there's two aspects of the Nation of Islam. You have the social construct, and then you have our theology, which is one and the same, but many of us only see the social construct of who we are. So they saw that aspect of me as a warrior, you know, for Black people, and a fighter for us as I grew into Islam and religion. I grew up a Catholic most of my life, and I saw a lot of discrepancies, and that's why I left the Catholic Church. And it was when I was in high school at the age of 16 that I got dissatisfied with the Catholic Church, when it was the second anniversary of the Soweto uprising in Sharpeville, South Africa, where they murdered the students because of a language. And Desmond Tutu, to me, did not say anything. And I remember, I believe it then, I said, if Jesus was here, he would do something, he would say something. And the church didn't say anything. And so in 1978, I started moving away from the church. And by 1980, I moved totally away from the church. And I was ripe to hear a man like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the true Jesus.
So you talked about how the appeal of the nationalistic side of the Nation of Islam, and then, you know, people come in and they find like, yo, this is also a religious organization. Did that present a challenge to you, being that you had your nationalistic inclination, and then to come to find out when you got involved in it that, yo, this is an organization that's built and based upon and moves out on God's will? Did that present a challenge to you?
You know, it did, in a context that, you know, when I came in, if Donald is on the phone, I should have tagged him on this. You know, the overall concept of the white man being the devil is something that was challenging to me coming in, since I had Caucasian in my family. You know, so of course, but the strength of the minister and the love and the fight for Black people, I didn't worry about that, because I left the church where I saw even worse situations. So I just didn't worry about that at the time. I wasn't thinking about the theology, but I didn't see anyone else that was talking about the liberation of our people and was fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, as we say it in Islam, in the nation. I didn't see anybody fighting for it. So I didn't worry about the religion because during those days in 82 and 83 and 84, I wasn't following the religion anyway, right? I still was struggling with Waliullah, with Hugh, with some of my own shortcomings. So I was on the journey, I was on the move. So the religion wasn't, I didn't allow that to stop me as I got involved with the social construct on fighting for the rights of Black people.
Wow. How did because you talked about something that I would imagine like that some believers have had that challenge, because we come from a diverse family. Sometimes there are believers her mother may be white or father may be white. So how did you reconcile that? How did you handle this strong teaching of the white man being the devil, and you have relatives who are white?
That, one of the things that was very interesting to me is as I start to study, and like I'm at the university, so, there's ways to study. So I remember talking about it as I heard the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the message of the Black man, that the white man started in Europe 6,000 years ago. We was running to the Caucasus Mountains. So I was like, okay, that's okay. Let me go look at the history of Europe. Then I realized, wow, history of the ice glacier 65, 7,000 years ago. So they weren't here. So they're not normal to here. So I started looking and studying as I was fighting for what I thought was Black people and our liberation. The other thing I heard, Black people and being the first people in Menelin and stuff of that nature. And I remember I went to one of my classes and I was maybe a sophomore. I just heard of the minister, just started my journey in 82, 83. And so I asked the sociology teacher or sociology, I think it was, is it true that, he was talking about Menelin and stuff like that and talking about rats. I said, well, if Menelin and rats make you move and think faster, since Black people have more melanin, it makes us smarter. So, man, that man turned beet red on me, Brother Willie. Didn't want to answer the question, but I'm looking at the science. I'm looking at history. I'm not looking at the religion at this point, right? Because sometimes we look for stuff to try to disprove what we don't want to go with, right? So but my mind might have been working in the opposite. I ain't trying to really prove the truth of the teaching of Elijah Muhammad bin Farrakhan. I'm trying to figure a way to disprove it. But at the same time, I love the fight that they have for Black people. So in my study, and I'm not saying I did this consciously, but looking back now as I'm talking to you, as I was looking at the history and the science, that ultimately led me to my conviction in the theology, because the science and the history proved true. I couldn't argue with that. I couldn't argue with Blacks being the first on the planet when we've been taught contrary, that we came from apes, we came out of this, that, and the other, right? So as I studied the science and the history, that led me to have a greater conviction in the theology.
Wow. Now, you talked about how your initial stages in the Nation of Islam were on the East Coast, but we now know that you're on the West Coast. Like, how did you manage that transition from going from being in the East Coast to now you're on the West Coast? How did you manage that transition?
Well, it was easy to manage because, I have the mindset after I made my decision to follow the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I trust him 100%. And so wherever he would send me, I would come to later learn that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us of him. Wherever he say go, go. Wherever he say stay from, stay from. And, so because I was sent out here through the Supreme Captain with the permission of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to be the regional captain in Los Angeles back in '94, it was no hesitation. I was on my way to law school at the time, or, back to law school. I just reapplied after I was summarily dismissed. And I was on my way there to University of Buffalo, and I was asked to come to Los Angeles to be the regional captain, to work with our great brother, our former Captain Emeritus, Brother Wali, one of the great anchors of Islam, and helping the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which was a great help to me in growing into a captain. I came out to work with him in the position that he had as the regional captain, and the transition was easy. I'm a soldier. You know, we sing the song, I'm fighting for Islam and we will surely win. Well, I'm a soldier in the cause of Allah, and I'm a helper and soldier for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So when he sent me, no matter where he sent me, I can make the transition. And so it's not even a thought. I'm just ready to serve him and serve Allah and help our people and be a help to bring the kingdom in any way I can. So it was easy. I left Buffalo as the captain. I was well known and received in that city as I grew up in that city where I met my wife in that city. I met her as a young man at 20, the same time I was here in the teachings. And, you know, we have been together through all my tours of duty. So I just want to say thank you to my dear wife, Sister Waliullah, because everywhere the messenger have asked me to go, whether directly or through one of his helpers, my wife has always been there with me. And we've been married now for going on 35 years.
Praise be to Allah. And in preparing for this interview, I found out a little part of Nation of Islam history that the San Diego Mosque, according to what I read, was the first mosque built on the West Coast, west of the Mississippi. Did you know that?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so how did you become the student minister of Mosque number 8 in San Diego?
Well, you know, it's in 1997, early 97, I wanted to transition from the captain to the ministry. I had a great brother, Abdul Malik Saeed, student minister, the regional minister, Malik Saeed. And I was a bit immature then, you know, out of my own arrogance. He and I clashed somewhat then, and I knew the value of a regional minister. So I actually wrote to the Supreme Captain, to the minister, to ask if I could make the transition from a captain to a ministry. And at that point, I started looking to see who would take over the captaincy in Los Angeles with some of the cadre of great soldiers that we had in the city. And so I requested to be transferred. And in 1997, before the minister went, I think on the Second World Friendship Tour, we were in DC, and the changes were being made. And at that point, there were 3 or 4 cities on the West Coast or other places. And I was told to go to San Diego and see what I thought of it for 30 days. And the minister, when he got back, then he would make the decision. And so I came to San Diego. I was instructed not to give anybody someone coming to be the minister here, but just to go and to start teaching, because the minister that was here had been set down. And so I was still supposed to be the regional captain, but you know, a lot of things changed. Today, Malik Saeed and I are tremendous colleagues and friends in the struggle, but it just shows, this was 20 plus years ago, 23, 24 years ago, how growth and the love that we both have for Islam and for the messenger, in our disagreement then, we never became disagreeable, but I knew the value of a good minister, and he was a good one. And I knew that in my arrogance and where I was at that time, although we talked about it, sometimes different styles, but he went on to be a great helper there in Los Angeles. I'm trying to be a great help here in San Diego.
Praise be to Allah. I had the opportunity, my family and I, to come to the great city of San Diego. And what struck out to me, I told you this, is the mixture of the people there. Like, I'm from the South, you might see a person mixed with black and white, maybe Latino and black. Sometimes you might get an Asian and black, but there I saw people that were black, white, Samoan and Asian and Latino, just a diverse of mixed interracial makeup, right? So being that is the case there, how has that impacted your and the believers their ability to propagate the faith, and how you all adjust to that type of difference landscape there?
That's an excellent question, Brother Willie. San Diego is said to be the most diverse city ethnically in the country. Of course, we sit right on the last stop to the Pacific Rim going into Hawaii. And so you have a lot of Asian groups. You have a lot of different ethnicities and mixture of those ethnicities that are here. Where blacks only make up about 4 to 6% of the population here in the city. So it poses a challenge. I tell people when we go, excuse me, door to door, it's hard pressed sometimes to knock on 3 doors in a row and find black people. Usually one out of
Wow.
every 4 doors, and sometimes it may be worse than that. In certain
Wow.
pockets in some residential development, we call them projects back east, but out here, when I tell people we got projects, and I show them, I say, well, where y'all projects at? Those look like some nice condos to us. But in the residential dwellings, you might be able to find pockets. Now, we still have communities that black folks still own homes, but many have sold and moved out. So it gives us the challenge. So we have to really use the universal approach to Islam as taught to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so while black is our main focus, we understand that the oppressed people and the black and the brown and the red, just as the minister gave it to us during the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, Justice or Else, we saw the diversity of the reach for the teaching. And so we try to reach out in that way as well. So while we go after black people, we stand up on the principle of justice and truth. And so we involve ourselves in every aspect of black life, but we involve ourselves in the aspect of governance of a city and a county that we're able to play a part in that. And so we develop a far-reaching reach. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we want justice. We want justice applied equally to all, regardless of race, class, creed, or color. And so that's the approach that we take, the principle of justice. And so that's how we move and try to engage the diversity of the community to stand for the principles of justice. And we use the numbers to show that those that are in greater need of justice, that have been denied justice the longest, has been black people. So we triage and say that we need to address this disparity first, and then we can deal with all of it as far as that goes.
You talked about how, no, you did very good. And I think what you said should be studied by others because, you know, the landscape is changing, you know, and that universal application of the teachings. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about that. You talked about how you all were able to bring the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to your college campus. Do you remember the first time you actually had the opportunity to meet and engage with the minister beyond like just a handshake or giving him the greetings? And if you remember, so what impact did that have on you? What do you remember about that experience and the impact that it had on you?
Wow, 1986, I think it was, or 1987. I got to get the Honorable Minister Farrakhan came to Buffalo, New York. I remember he drove up in his Mercedes. They drove in, and we were at the hotel. And at the time, I had a construction company. I had a phone around my neck, one of them big phones. You know, if you see how the Quran is, the phone with the big, with the hook, with the, you know, and I had that around my neck. I had a construction company at the time, and we talked about the phone. And the minister said, "Oh, you gotta see, you have your phone there, brother," because a lot of people didn't have mobile phones at that time. But what struck me, that wasn't it. I was in his suite, and he woke up and he came out the room, and I got up to talk to him, and he said, "Brother, where are the captains?" You know, one of the things I learned about the ministry, the most principled and structured human being that I've ever met. He never violates the principle of structure. And that taught me something as a young man, you know, because a lot of time we think we just run up to the messenger, right? Or run up to somebody, you know, and the minister is very accessible, right? He's like that. But for whatever reason, in 1987, 86, I remember and said, "Brother, where?" And that's because sometimes you want to make sure the instruction you get is the instruction you're supposed to have, right? And so that reminded me to always remember structure is very important in what we do. And so I've earned the name throughout the nation through many of being a nation man. You know, I'm a nation man, the type that I will use our full government and talk to everyone in our full government because we are a government. And once our government makes a decision, if it goes straight to the messenger, then once the decision is made by him or the executive council, then as the law teaches in the Quran, I have no straightness in my breast. I just keep it moving, and I've done my job. So I learned structure from him in my first meeting that I'll never forget in my 38 years in this process.
And why did he ask you where the captains? Like, what happened? If you can share.
Because I was in the room, so I want to try to get up and try to let him know what's going on, right? But I didn't have all the information either, right? I'm just a young FOI, I'm in the room, hey, I'm just happy, I'm gonna get me some conversation going here, basically what I was thinking, and so the minister, sometimes you have to understand, when the minister has a focus, you have to respect what is on his mind, and the consistency of his mission since 1955 when he came into the Nation of Islam, when he was given his assignment by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so if you don't understand the minister, sometimes you could take things personal, but you should never take it personal because his love is so, I won't say unreal, but his love is supernatural, in his commitment. But I just wanted to engage, but he wanted to know what was going on. He wanted a briefing, and I was not the one to give the briefing. The briefing should have come from a superior officer.
Wow. Now, you talked about your work there, and I remember when I was there, you were having separate meetings with community activists. It was an Arab brother that actually came to your home, and I sat in as you were talking about, what was going on in your city and in the role of the leadership. In 2017, you, along with many other civic and community organizations, challenged the SPL, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the ADL for falsely labeling our mosque there and your leadership as being part of a hate group. So can you talk about your call and your response to that accusation, and what was the outcome?
As we have been working in this city with the great team of believers here and some of the helpers that have been with me for the 21 going on 22 years that I've been in the city, been there every step of the way, there's 4 believers, well, 2 in particular that really stand out more than any that have been there every step of the way with me, other than my wife, would be Sister Mary and Brother Eddie. They have been 2 believers that have been with me and have held several different posts within my administration, whether secretary or protocol or FOI captain. And so those 2 have endured my growth pains and helping. And so I want to thank them and their families because they have been instrumental in my growth, but all of the believers in the city of San Diego that have been phenomenal in helping me to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So when the minister was coming, we were attacked by the Southern Poverty Law Center. It was to derail the move that we were making. And I think Student Minister Ishmael did such a fantastic job today on the war against Black youth when he talked about, you don't have to just kill the messenger. You and I have talked about this before, but you have to get rid of the remnant. You have to get rid and kill the idea. You have to kill the very thought that anyone could come up. And so we were making a move to develop 65 units on 1.5 acres land, which include a 7,000 square foot mosque, community center, and school, along with another 4,000 to 5,000 retail space. And we had made an agreement with a developer. We were moving along, and we saw the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL came out against what we were doing and naming us a hate group. And so the goal was to derail our plans. I contacted our headquarters and we developed a press conference to go too long, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan guided me through the press conference. I talked to him at least on 3 different occasions. The Nation of Islam research team, Brother Abdul Arf Muhammad, Brother Dimitri was very instrumental in helping me because it was not about Waliullah, it was not about Brother Hugh, it was not about San Diego. The attack was against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam as a whole. because an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And ultimately, the label of, being anti-Semitic or a hate group, comes directly against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so we developed a press conference. God have blessed us in this city with the work that was done before I got here. Because some of the people that I mentioned, like the brother Eddies and the brother James and the sister Marys and brother Bernards and others had developed relationships in this city already that I was able to tap into when I first came to this city. When I came to this city, they set up a meeting with some of the top leaders and politicians, pastors and community leaders, and I was able to continue that because of the example from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and how to engage in a city. And so I was able to do that by Allah's grace. And so we had the press conference and we beat them back. They had tested the waters before that. When the minister came here in 2012, they actually went to different pastors. They went to the Islamic groups. And the Muslim brother that was at my home, I cannot think of his name offhand. Hopefully I think of it's Isam Lagrich, I believe it might have been, worked to how do we unify the Muslim community. So we've worked to make sure that wherever the name of Allah, God, or Jesus is mentioned, or Jehovah or Yahweh, we're not going to be a stranger, amongst black or whites or Arabs or anybody if the principle of the Quran and the Bible is being taught and practiced. As the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, wherever God's name is mentioned, I believe I belong there, and I believe the same thing. So we've developed a relationship with just about every masjid, most of them, not all, but most of them in the city. I've been to the Sunni mosque, I've been to the Shiite mosque, I've been to the what you would call Tabliki. I've been to the Somali mosque and worked with the imams, and as much as we've been into many of the churches. But that's the example that's laid before me in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in reaching out to people. And in this city, we work with a tremendous amount of Caucasians as well. And that's why we challenge them. How can you say you're a hate group? And my 21 years of service to this community from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you can't produce one incident. That's what the minister told me to tell him. Produce one incident where one of my followers under your leadership, you were talking to me, or under any minister's leadership, have acted in a violent way toward any Caucasian or any Jewish person. They couldn't find one. And when we questioned them on that, their attitude were, we're going to consider you a hate group. So it has nothing to do with what we do. It just has to do with the false propagation and lies that they tell, because their identity is being exposed by the Messiah in our presence, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so we beat them back, but the developer backed out, and we had to scramble to get it. We have a deal, but that deal now looks like it's going to fall apart. But, brother, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't worry about that anymore. I worry more about living a right life and guiding those that Allah have entrusted me with from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to encourage them to live according to the rules and regulations, the statutes, and to give service to our community and to the people and to the human family as a whole. And when we do that, Allah says in the Quran, see ye not that Allah is he who bestows favors on the believers, and so does his angels. So I believe that Allah will bless us to be successful, and whatever he blesses us with, that will be the success that we are to have.
Wow. Now, when we were there, I don't know if that picture in the background is also part of it. You told me about you had the distinct privilege of having the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan come to your home for dinner. Can you talk about that and share that experience, man?
Wow, brother, that was a tremendous feat. And again, this is where the staff came in and the team comes in. And so tremendous, because we fed over 100 people. And so when he invited the minister, we also invited him to dinner. And one of the things he said, it reminded him of when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the police escort we had, because we had a police escort for him by the grace of Allah. We took him off the tarmac. Every place he went, he had a police escort in the city. I wanted a little bit more, but that's a whole nother story. But they gave us cars and motorcycles. But when he came to our home, the Black Police Officers Association, along with the Greater Police Department. I mean, when the minister came here with police everywhere, we locked down the freeway going back. And here we had 2 head tables. We had 3 other tables in the family room. And then we set a tent up outside where we are here in the backyard that we had another 4 or 5 tables. Sister Mary Alice, the minister chef, provided food for the inside of the 2 main tables and a couple others. But then we had a chef, our dear brother out of Las Vegas, Brother Elijah, who is the chef, the former protocol director, maybe still be the protocol director. He came in and Lord have mercy. And he also prepared the same exact meal that Mary Alice made, so everybody had the same exact food throughout the house. But we had a wealth of leaders from the Islamic community, the Christian community, the business community, and a divergence of people that was at my home. The minister said he very seldomly, when he travels around the country, that he's invited into the home of the believers. And he said it reminded him of when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think was 1963, when he went to Washington, D.C. He equated it with that visit of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in his visit to San Diego. And, you know, I'm honored that he came because he had not accepted a visit to go to any mosque or a visit from any mosque per se. And I remember leaving Savior's Day that year. My dear brother, Brother Joshua, the messenger's son, knew I had a packet. So he said, Dad, Brother Hugh has something to eat. So the minister told me to get in the car, and I rode with him back to the National House. And we talked that February after Savior's Day in 2017. Excuse me, about 2012, about him coming to San Diego. I gave him the stats on the first mosque and everything like that. And he accepted to come, and he in fact came. And as a matter of fact, he did a lecture at the church of my dear brother and friend, Pastor Ricky T. Laster, at the Lord have mercy, New Assurance Baptist Church, that was called The Coming of God to End the Division of Satan. Brother Minister Jabril wrote on that lecture for 6 to 7 weeks consecutively in his article in the Final Call newspaper. And the topic of the minister on that Sunday was guidance in a time of trouble. And so we enjoyed him here, and it was just a phenomenal visit and a great honor that I had. And my wife was such a fantastic host. You know, I can't say enough, you know, of Waliullah. Most of you know her as Sybil, because she've allowed me to grow into the man I'm becoming. And without her, I know when we talk about religion as half of your faith, it's more than just being married, but is the support that comes with that, and also the guidance that comes with that, because the woman will help to give you guidance. As the messenger said, a woman can't help a man do nothing. But since we got something to do, she had been a great help to me. And she was just a phenomenal host when the messenger came to our home. And something we will never forget by the grace of Allah. We actually have a picture with my wife. Both our sons are not in the picture. Our other son was not here, but our oldest son, Brother Charles, myself, he and Waliullah, we took a picture in the home with the messenger of God. So it was tremendous. And he had table talk, and I mean, it was just awesome, Brother Willie, you know, with this. Excuse me for taking that long on that one question.
Oh, no, man, listen, we got time. I want you to just to share. And those, if there's stories you want to share, man, by all means, share them. And, you know, you've had the opportunity, like I was watching the July 4th thing. And I said, look, man, look at Brother Waliullah. You be on those scenes, man. And you've had the opportunity to be around the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and observe him and interact with him, to hear the different table talks. With that being said, what are at least 3 outstanding qualities that you have observed and it's an experience of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? And how have, this is a 2-part question, how have those 3 qualities impacted you personally?
Wow. Number 1 would be his faith, brother, and his trust in Allah. I was with him. I forgot where it was. It wasn't just me. And we were talking. He said, I so completely trust in Master Fard Muhammad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so his faith has been a strength for my faith. And so number one, the first, and I'll go more into the first, would be his faith. Number two, I would say would be his love. You know, the messenger's love, the minister's love is so great, you know, and I'll share a story about that, you know, and that my personal um, interaction where the minister have been disappointed with me, in which I've done things that I've had to be corrected by him by, but that never stops the minister from utilizing you. You know, and it's something that Minister Ishmael said today in his address. He said we can always hate what the person do, but not the person. The minister, the worst of us, you know, he will correct the behavior, but the love for the individual is just phenomenal. It's extraordinary. So love. The other one, you know, the thing I would say would be the integrity of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know, so for me, it's faith, love, and integrity. A man that loves truth and Allah above and beyond everything. And so when you talk about faith and in rebuilding the nation of Islam, and I came very early to hear it. He started in 1977, 78. I started on the journey in 1982, but didn't get in the mix until 84. My first major event was 1985 at Madison Square Garden. As a matter of fact, I was there when they tore the doors off the hinges. You know, I mean, literally getting in, they tore the doors off the hinges of Madison Square Garden to get to the check area. Now they tear the door off the hinges, and when they get to the check area, they stop and get checked. You know, it's like they just wanted to get in so bad, but you know, they was like, we're not going to be denied. But once they got to, hey, here, they didn't keep running. They stopped and started getting checked. It was just phenomenal to hear the minister in Madison Square Garden in 85. But the faith of rebuilding the nation, even at a point when Minister Jabril, and we know the history was trying to show him, of is it possible that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive? You know, and the question he said that Brother Ishmael asked him in regard you believe, and he said, well, if you know, either way, we got the work to do. So the trust and the faith that he had, and of course in 1981, when he came to believe and to know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive, and we can prove it from the Bible and the Holy Quran, then we now, and there was a falling away then we start to see the faith now grow from where we were. And Minister Ishmael showed how it was the plot and the plan of the United States government, the counterintelligence program, to destroy the nation of Islam. And that plot started not at the departure of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but that plot started in the 60s, and it planned all the way through. And then, of course, when the nation fell on the departure of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and those 30 months the messenger was gone, and then when he started to rebuild, he had the faith to know that there was something coming. And so that is what faith I have. I completely trust in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan 100%. And while as a young man coming up, I did not understand anything, my trust in him, my faith in him allowed me to follow him through thick and thin, and to my own growth product and overcoming my own impediments, to striving to be a greater reflection of him, this Christ and Allah, and what God came to make us. So faith, number one. Now, love is something else. You know, when you look at the type of advice the ministers have given to so many, I've been in the room when they've talked to, I'm not going to call names, but I mean, from one spectrum to the other. Many of know his relationship going back in the day with the Eddie Murphys. I can say that because that's public knowledge. The Arsenio Halls, when he was on his show, you know, the Bobby Brown, the Michael Jacksons, the Muhammad Ali's, the Mike Tysons. I mean, you could name the list. So many of the luminaries in the entertainment field, in the business field. And the minister never tried to force them to join. He just always tried to encourage them to be a better human being because he loved the person, not trying to convert somebody to what they are by nature. And if he could tap into the nature, then he could get them to be himself. But one of my personal relationship with love with the minister, I was in Baltimore in 1993. And I made an egregious error when I was in the suite of the minister. And the minister was very displeased with me. I won't go into it in the conversations. But I remember when Brother Sultan came out in the suite and he said, brother, you need to step out the room. And wallahi, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh Allah, if I offended thee or thy messenger, please forgive me. And I didn't know what the offense was at the time. I'm not going to go into it here either. But I was dismissed from the ministry. I was actually the captain in Buffalo at the time. I was suspended from my post. They wanted to relieve me, and the messenger told them, no, just sit him down. And when I went home, this was in October, we were practicing Ramadan at that time in December, I believe. And although we started fasting back in the regular month of Ramadan from 1987, I think of the first year was 87 or 88. I did the first Ramadan in the 9th month during the month of Ramadan, right? And when the rest of the Islamic world fasted. And so I wrote him in December of 93 from the 33rd Surah of the Allies. And it was just before we went to Jacob Javits Center. And so I was told he didn't want me around him. I need to, stay away and everything else. And I remember as this was going down, Supreme Captain and the now Supreme Captain, Mustafa Farrakhan, just a wonderful brother and man. And Brother Akil was coming out. They called me Velcro. Oh, you got your stripes taken again, huh? And I went down. Then I was told, don't leave the city. I'm like, where am I going? Don't leave the city. We can be very harsh sometimes. Don't leave the city. Yes, sir. No. But it was ironic. I remember something in that Brother Mustafa called me and he said, brother, I want you. Minister don't want you around him right now, but go ahead and take my wife over to the event. Now, I'm not sure if I made sure Karen and Sister Karen didn't sit down. Like, Sister, can you move to the other side? I don't know, they're gonna take me out. Now I'm only joking, but Sister Karen and I had just a wonderful person too. We rode over. I don't remember us talking about that, but she would say, brother, don't worry about that. Just make sure you do the right thing. I remember crying profusely when I saw what I had done. The point I'm making about love, this was in December, October of 93, December I ride and we go to Jacob Javits Center and I'm there. He asked me when he gets off of the phone. He asked me when he gets off of the plane. My phone rang. He asked me when he gets off the plane and they said, oh, Brother Minister, he's at the Jacob Javits Center working. So as I'm in the Jacob Javits Center working, and I'm leading I got a picture of me leading a whole line of men, putting them on posts. I saw the minister walking to go to the stage and I immediately stopped, did an about face and started going the other direction. And he called me over. He had got my letter. He called me over and he said to me, I don't remember what he said to me, but he whispered something in my ear, gave me a big hug. All I remember is Daddy forgave me, right? That March, I'm get a call from the Supreme Captain that the minister or they want me to go to the West Coast to be the regional captain. Now, if it was not love and forgiveness in the heart of the messenger of God, the violation that I made, I've come to know and understand what it was. And I'm not going to make any excuse. It was not intentional, but it did happen at the end of the day. So whether you decide to kill a man or you meant to kill a man or you didn't meant to kill a man, guess what? The man dead. Right. So, go tell the wife about being a widow and the children about being an orphan, but drop in there, but I didn't mean to do it. That may mean something, but we need to make an atonement for what we have done. So that was a great learning lesson for me, but it demonstrated the type of love that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has for us and for all those that he have guided in and out of the nation of Islam. And so when it comes to integrity, what the minister told us from day one about his vision in 1985 and his coming into the nation in 1955. in 1995 to the press conference in 2017, I believe it was, at the Watergate Hotel, all the way to the July 4th, the Criterion. The level of consistency and integrity is phenomenal. You cannot have a human being unless you're reading the scripture. And of course, we're reading about him and others. But the realization is that it's continuously consistent and it never changes. And so his integrity and the truth that he speaks and the veracity that he speaks it with, to me, is another thing that make me strive. When I hear the minister speak sometime, you know, he said, I said, well, I can't do that, but I could be like him. He has been like that from a boy. And so his life has been a full example for me as I sit here at almost 60 years of age, following him with him for 38 years of my life. I'm 58 going on 59, so I don't need to rush 60. So let me say closer to 59 than 60. And 38 of those years I've been on the path with him. Those things, his faith, his love, and his integrity, is one of the things to me that stands out, that helped to guide my life as I try to help him in whatever place he sends me to help him.
Now, when you talked about that trial, and you know, that can be a very crushing thing to hear the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan doesn't want you around him. You know, all type of thoughts can go into our mind. How did you handle not allowing the negative thinking to corrupt your spirit, to corrupt your faith, to corrupt your belief? And what word, you know, just to be able to survive that trial?
One simple word: truth. One, I saw the truth of what I'd done. And I remember Brother Dennis came to me and told me, and I said, brother, I don't remember. He said, what you trying to say, the minister lying? You know, we can be pretty, he said, if you looked at you, I would have thrown you through the window myself. I said, Lord, and they meant that too now. You know, we will, you know, we're not going to play. Allah says in the Quran, don't annoy the messenger of God. We don't take that lightly. You know, I don't take that lightly of one who've had the privilege and the honor of being with him on many momentous occasions. And so as Brother Dennis told me about it, and I didn't see it, but then he told me and I saw what I did. I could picture it. I went back in time. I traveled back at where I was in the suite, and what I did, I was able to see it. And so the test was not with him. The test was with those that were supposed to have been my colleagues. The test was with those that I served with in the city of Buffalo and others in the Nation of Islam, because sometime in our immature state, you know, we say and do things and act in a certain way that's not in the best. But I had that same growth pride, and so I don't hold that against them. It was easy for me to get past, because truth showed me, and it was correct in being disciplined. But I also saw the messenger's love, even in me being in his dissatisfaction, for lack of a better word, in what I have done. The fact that he did not allow them to bust me, because there are those who want to relieve me totally. You know, sometimes we want to make examples, you know, when it ain't our position to make examples, right? You know, so the messenger said, nah, just relieve him. And you know, so I was able to get through it, because by that time in my life, brother, I had so trusted the messenger of God, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know, whenever something goes wrong, I learned, don't look at him, look at myself. And so that's the practice that I use. So whatever it may be. And of course, you know, he gave us the example of how the messenger tested him. So I always say, this is a test from him, it's a book for me. So for me, you know, since he have testified and his life has been such an open book for us, I just relate back to him and how did his teacher deal with him, right? How did he teach us about his teacher deal with him? So when things happen to me, I don't take it personal with the messenger of God. I look at myself first, because oftentimes when we do that, 95% of the time we'll be able to solve the problem. Sometimes we just don't want to look at the truth of our own actions. I saw my own actions that made it easy for me to deal with that. It was more difficult to deal with others. I keep getting a call that say this is an emergency.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
You want to handle it or what?
No. And let me just take this call real quick, brother. Well, I apologize. Yes.
Go ahead.
Brother Wahid, is it an emergency? I got a call from.
So thank you all and for those people who are watching right now while our brother is taking that phone call, can you just type in some stuff? You can, if you all can just type in, what are you gaining from this actual interview? Wow, I'm about to unmute you, brother. I had put you on mute while you were on the phone. So if you can, gotta unmute yourself. So
that was one of our great pioneers. Believe it or not, that was Minister Brother Whitehead that was calling me. So I had to take that. Before that was Brother Eric from Arizona that called me that said it was an emergency. You got Brother Eric? Check Eric for me, huh?
yeah.
That said was, but that was Brother Whitehead, one of the first ones that stuck with the messenger that came up with the minister. You know, so I'm back, brother Willie. My wife is gonna.
And since that experience, the minister has the minister ever even mentioned that or thrown that back in your face?
Not one time, brother. Not one time. And you know, I've been able to basically almost cook for the minister. I've been drove the minister. Not one time, brother. Let me tell you. Now the other part we talk about forgiveness.
Talk about that.
You know, if forgiveness, he teaches us about forgiveness and atonement, right? So he lives those 8 steps that we got at the Million Man March. You know, and so once we can acknowledge our fault, and you know, then it's easy for us to be able to deal with it. So not one time, brother, that I've ever heard it from him. I got a few of my colleagues every now and then I hear from them, but other than that, he have never brought it up. But you know, we got a heck of a team, and some of those men that I came up with in the 80s and the 90s, just some phenomenal men and helpers. But yeah, no, he's never brought it up, not one time, brother.
I want to get this on record too. I was watching an interview, and it was one of the former bodyguards who will work, police officer who was hired by Death Row. And he talked about how there was a hip hop award show, I think it was in California. I don't know if it was The Source or BET, but he talked about how at that time, you know, there was the whole East Coast, West Coast, and Notorious Big and Tupac Shakur's camp. They were all there at the same time. And he said that they were actually about to get involved into a violent interaction and guns were drawn. But in the interview, I'll send you the clip, is on YouTube. And the guy asked him, well, what stopped? And he said it was the Black Muslims. And then having a conversation with you, you actually were there over security. Do you remember that event? And
I was that Black Muslim that helped to stop that, brother. I was the regional captain at that time. And so the realization is what happened. This was dealing, of course, with Notorious Big and them. And this was, I remember when Suge Knight and Tupac pulled up and they jumped out. And I think it was Mace. I think it might have been Mace. I've forgotten now. It's over a couple, 2+ decades ago. I think it might have been Mace that come and they wanted to pull guns and they were coming. They were about to fight. I had to get out to pull Mace to the side. And I said, even if you, what you gonna do, man? You know, at the end of the day, this ain't gonna work. So we had to really work very hard, you know, to deal with that, with them. And so we had to pull it, get them to the side, put them in. And because we're able to deal with them, if I remember, I think Captain David might have been there, Shaheed, there's a few people, but it was very, very, very volatile. But God bless us to be able to step in and to be able to mitigate and to really put that off. And one of the things I remember saying to Mason, I pulled him and we got there. I said, let me tell you, suppose you did, where you gonna go? You got to get from where you are all the way to the airport. I said, how you think you gonna get there from here to there? That ain't gonna happen. I said, come on, brother, you got to do much better than that. So, you know, that's that. I remember that, brother. It was a very tough, and we have, listen, I've done some Source Awards, BT Awards and stuff like that, where it's like Brother Ishmael said today, man, we got to correct our behavior. You know, sometimes we are off the hook, as we would say. But the good thing is, because of who we are, God has blessed where our people respect us and trust us. And we're able to get in between that particular and many others throughout our history.
Now you talk about, Definitely. We got it on our records now. Talk about how just what do you remember about you being given your holy name, and what it is a three-part question. Just the setting when you were given a holy name, what it means, and if the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared any of his thoughts, like why he named you that.
Wow. Wow. That's a huge question. You know, the setting, of course, was Ermias Esteban, Nipsey Hussle, and the work that Abdul Malik Saeed and others throughout the region were going up all the time after brothers was murdered, and the issue that was taking place in Los Angeles with the youth organizations that they call them gangs. And so we were going back and forth. And so as the minister was invited in to come to the funeral to share some words, we were in the suite, and we were with the minister maybe 4 or 5 days in a row. And literally, brother, I got notes on this. I need to send them to you if I haven't already done it. Where, you know, it was 4, 6, 8 hours a day sometimes. We would go, we'd be in the morning for coffee, spend until midday. Then we may take a break. He may have some, not may he have some meetings. Then we come back for dinner later on that evening. So 4 or 5 days in a row, we're meeting like this. A few of the ministers from the West Coast and some of his executive council was also present. And so this particular morning, we were talking, and he started giving names. And of course, you had Abdul Malik Saeed, of course, received his name. You have brother Iman, who I'm on his show later on today, received his name out of Phoenix. You had brother Mus. Mustakir, I'm messing up his name. Mustakeen, excuse me, brother Mustakeen out of Compton, Rashidullah out of San Francisco, and you had brother Sabor out of Oakland, and myself received the name. And also brother Kareem received the name, but he already had the name Kareem and Muhammad, so I think he got Abdul and something else added to his name. And so the minister named everyone. When he came to me, I thought I was going to get missed, to be quite honest. And I remember now, the minister told me over 25 years ago that he had a name for me. I think I might have been the regional captain, Hugh X, when I remember, or a local captain told me he had a name for me. I never asked him for it, you know. And even when we got Muhammad, I never took on a first name. So I was very patient. So this morning we're there. He went around the room, and he came back to me, and he said, as he was saying, he said, brother Wali. And he said, protecting friend. He said, you have been that. You have been a protecting friend. And then he said, Abdul Wali. Then he said, Waliullah, the friend of God. Then he said, Abdul Waliullah, the protecting friend of God. So the one who protect the friend of Allah. And so that's how I got the name. A few days later, I saw him again after Brother Minister. I do understand that my name, Waliullah, Abdul, mean the one who is the protector of the servant. And no, protect the servant. I said, no, brother. He said, you could grow into being the friend of Allah. And so he said, brother, you have been with me. He said, you have been there, and you have been that type of a person. So he said, Wali, he said, Wali, the protecting friend of God. He said, you have been that. And when he came to San Diego, he said the reason why he came to San Diego in 2012, he said, brother, every place I went, I saw you there. He said almost every place I went. And the only trips I didn't make with the messenger most of the time was on the World Friendship Tour. I've been to Africa with them in 94. But I never made any of the World Friendship Tour. But I've been in Central and South America, Canada, and many places in the Caribbean, of course, all over the country of America with him. But he said, brother, every place I go, I saw you. He said, how could I tell you no when you invited me to come to San Diego? So that's how I got my name, and that's how he came to San Diego. So I'm thankful to Allah for that.
You open up talking about how you're from the Caribbean, and I believe it was 2014, we had our Holy Day of Atonement. From being that you're a native from that area, what can you share about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's, the value that he sees in that area and how he's received there? And if there are any stories that you can share about his interaction with people there that stood out to you.
Wow, so many. So I missed a few of the trips, but in many of the ones that I've been on, number one, the minister is so loved in the Caribbean and in Africa. We don't see it. And the tremendous love that he have here in the United States as well. But the realization is that the heads of government that he has influenced, you know, throughout this country and in the Caribbean. I remember we were in a Caribbean island. It's one of the stories that we have, and myself and brother student minister Kareem from the Inland Empire were there along with some of the security team. And the CIA had been to the country. There were government officials. And as we were meeting with the chief of police, he told us of how the CIA came and met with them, brother Rashad and brother Melvin, well, brother Sadiq now, you know, were there, the advance and the head of the minister's security detail, the E-team. And that's one of the toughest journeys we're on, where we knew they were trying to kill the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And we were there, and he talked to the government. He talked to everyone. It was an outside venue. There were snipers on different places, and we had to put FOI on there. And this is where, of course, then the student minister said we also do security. That's my thing. I got a reputation in the Nation of Islam. When I used to run venues back in the 80s and the 90s, you know, ministers used to dread me because I'm like, they talk, you know, I still, to this day, I still serve, you know, the minute I said, man, there's only one minister, that's Minister Farrakhan. Everybody else gets stand post, you know. And so my thing is that wherever he is, I'm a soldier, you know. And so I just become another soldier, you know, for him. And so we were standing post this night. And me and brother Kareem, we had the post and the duty. And of course, the minister is here and the water is right here. And, you know, we're waiting to come. And we're watching, keeping an eye on the back. And they still talk about, you know, this night, I know what I saw coming out of the water was like an amphibious unit, right? And you could see the lights and everything else. Somebody said, it's a turtle. Man, ain't no turtle that big. Ain't no turtle got lights like that, right? That you can see coming out. And so as they came out the water, I remember brother said, let's go. I said, no, brother, we ain't going to there. If they go kill me, they go kill me right here. Report all call from posts more distant from the temple than your own. I think in security, I think the general orders, right? So I'm not, I can't, who am I gonna report to? In any case, I got to sound the alarm, right? And I can't allow no one to commit a nuisance on or near my post. So I'm watching this thing come out the water, and we refuse to move. We back up, we get on the radio, we're trying to notify people. And they were probably expecting, I'm going to be honest with myself. Now, maybe if the Grand Master was out there with Anthony or maybe Chris or somebody else, but I ain't going to be able to take on a United States Navy SEAL. I'm going to be real with myself, right? So I'm not going over there, but I'll fight him when he come here, right? But I'm not going to be killed on the beach and be shoved out to sea. If you go kill me, you go kill me with my door at the back of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, hollering out Allahu Akbar while I'm fighting you, sounding the alarm. So we stayed there, and we just slowly saw it go right back into the water and just disappear because we were on post. Those were one of the most critical. Of course, the next morning, there was a lot of, you know, humor behind it and everything else like that, but it was very real to it. Later on the next day, we found out that there was a plot, that the CIA had been there. They had spoken to the police chief and trying to get him to have them infiltrate into the security services, also to get him to not allow the minister certain what we would call resources and assets that the police force may have to secure him correctly with full intelligence. But that brother loved the minister. So when you talk about the love that the minister have throughout the Caribbean, the same thing in Jamaica. I've been in Jamaica where all three former and present prime ministers, we've been able to arrange a minister that went to their homes if they have come to him. So it's been a tremendous effort to love that in the Caribbean. And they see the minister in such a way, almost every Caribbean island sees the minister, as the head of the leadership for Black people in America and the world. Now,
Wow.
of course, you still have pressure from the United States government, and they still make policies because, unfortunately, most of them depend on the United States government in one way or another for levels of their sustenance.
What would you say? What would you say? And that's interesting in regards to how dirty they are. Like people don't realize the number of attempts that have been made on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's life by this government. Something, man, and you just shared another one that I didn't know about. And as high as up in the offices of the CIA, like, what would you say when you reflect over your time in serving the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? One of the most profound things that you have learned from him. You talked about his forgiveness, his integrity, his love, his trust. What's another one of the most profound things that you can testify of about the minister?
Wow. When you talked about me, and I know I didn't respond to you because I don't like when I do interviews, I don't like to know the questions or know what's going to be asked of me. I rather just, do it as Allah guides me to say it. But there was something I wanted to share on 3 occasions that when you talk about faith, and you mentioned in one of your earlier questions, how did those 3 things impact me personally? I remember 3 things that stick out to me more than anything else from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Number 1 was in 1987, Prince of Peace Church of God in Christ. I was the assistant minister in the city of Buffalo at that time and the first officer. And I remember when the minister was there, he said, "You're looking for Jesus, here am I." That was 1987. I remember jumping on the table, say, "Lord, man," because they say you look, and then he rolled it back and he said that, "I am like a Jesus." And we've heard him talk about the 4 Jesuses as far as that go. He didn't want to go too far because he didn't know exactly where he was or who he was in scripture fully. But I heard that. I heard it. So, I put that away. One of the next most profound things I heard was I was with the minister and I asked him, I said, "Dear Apostle, why are we not more successful than we are?" And it's like we're taking an open book test. And he said to me that I'm going to come back to that one. I'm going to keep it in order. 1997, I'm with him at the Nico Hotel. And I asked him this question. We're having, that was another thing I learned about the minister's integrity was in that trip as well. Because the minister had given me his credit card to go pay for a bill. And I told him what the bill was, and he don't miss any detail. The minister is such, when it comes to pay attention, that's why he can remember all the heads of states and so much, and the trust that he have in his people around him. And that's why I learned, brother, don't never betray his trust. And he gave me his credit card to go pay a bill. And when I got to the counter, the bill had went up a few $1,000s. I should have came back and said to him, "Dear Apostle, the bill is more because they didn't put last night charges in. So I just paid for the thing and brought it back." He looked and said, "Brother, you told me that the bill was one thing. I learned from him, make your yeas, and your nays, your yays. Tell him the truth. Always strive to give the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan actual facts. Don't embellish. Don't put a 5, a 10, or a 20 on it. Don't even put a 1 on it. Give him the straight facts because he makes decisions when he trusts you based on what you tell him." And so it's very critical. And so I learned that from him that day that, when you tell him something, make it be the 100. If anything changes, you want to make sure you come back and tell him. That's integrity in a construct. But at that morning, I asked him, this was in maybe it was 96, because I think it was the year after the Million Man March. It was 96, before I went to Jamaica, before him. And I said, "Dear Apostle, when are we going to be able to tell the people who you are?" That's what I asked him. And his words were to me, he said, "Brother, are you saying that Jesus don't have no more attracting power?" And that's because in 96, what had happened, we had an event and we were not as successful as we should have been in the city of Los Angeles. And then the next thing he said to me was, "Brother, when they started to come up on the identity of Jesus, it was time for him to go." Now that's me and him and maybe one or few other people. Can never forget that conversation. Number three, I was in Los Angeles again. This was in 2010 or maybe a couple of years later. And I asked the minister, I said, "Dear Apostle, why are we not more successful than we are?" Because I was concerned. I mean, with the truth that we got, why are we not more successful? And it's like we're taking a open book test. 75% of what is prophecy. We walking through Scripture, Bible, and Holy Quran. He said, "Well, brother, first he said prophecy has to be fulfilled." Or what we read of, he said, but I said, "But dear Apostle, you have taught us that we can beat prophecy." He said, "Yes, to the degree that you all believe I am who you say I am is to the degree that you will be successful." So when the minister stands in the garden on July 4th as the Messiah, we believe him to be the Messiah. And if we believe him to be the Messiah, then our work on behalf of the Messiah have to demonstrate that belief that we have in all that we do. And so those three things are, to me, as I come to look at him and to see him, for being God's messenger, the servant of God, the Messiah in our midst, then how do I serve him? And those are things that I will always remember. And I've shared that point with many of my colleagues over the last 10 years, because I never go before the messenger and not come back and try to share with my colleagues and with the believers here in San Diego that which I can share, because something that is said sometimes things that is said at the table is for the table, and it's for those that are at the table. And sometimes that become, a test for some of us, because some of us think we got to tell everything. We got to know what to tell and what is guidance for us in the future. So those are the things that I remember most, that sticks in my mind, when it comes to those things of God's servant in our midst, and knowing, in fact, he is who I believe him to be, the Messiah, the messenger of God in our midst.
These last two questions. If you looking at your life up until this point, what would you say has been the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's greatest impact on your personal life up until this point?
One, my marriage.
Explain that.
I made many mistakes and decisions, and looking at him, sometimes we do things that's not in our lane to do. But for me, when he talked about marriage as one half your faith and study guide, number 4, the struggle for balance, and we talked about gain and balance, and if you run out on marriage, you'll run out on God. And when I was going through the struggle that I created within my own marriage, there was times that I thought of running out on God. Running out on the marriage, but maybe I would have run out on God. But he and Mother Khadijah served as a source of strength for me in being and holding fast and trusting in Allah and making through. So one of the greatest impacts, which is a part of the overall faith, because to me, the greatest thing I get from the minister is faith. As the book of Hebrew calls it now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and some scholars will say not yet seen, but that which will be brought into. So trusting in him that all that he have told me, it could be, and trusting in him that what he have told us about marriage, if we could make it through those difficult times, then there will come a greater joy. And I believe now I'm greater in love with my wife, with my nation, with our people, and with the desire to be a righteous human being than I've ever been at any point in my life. We used to say, I want to go back to when I was the best. No, I ain't never been the best. I'm moving towards the best. And I thank Allah for that, and to have a companion and a life companion like my wife, Waliullah, with us. I think one of the greatest impact was my family and just my faith and trust in Allah. And I'm going to tell you, the love for our people. And one of the things that impacted me greatly, I think, that make me have some level of success, is how I watch him deal with people. and how he deal with every human being, no matter what your color, no matter what your religion. You know, he deal with every human being based on the principles of truth and righteousness. And so I try to mimic that in as I deal in the city with mayors on my level or governors on my level, while he deal with presidents and kings. I may deal with mayors or governors or city council people, whatever it may be, and I try to follow how he deal with them, and I strive not to deviate and to compromise principle because he don't do that. And so those are the two things I think the greatest impact, how I do my service in helping him, and how I have related to my wife have been the greatest impact to me. And I'm still learning to be better.
What would his last question? We talk about the title of this is "I Have a Testimony." Why, from your perspective, why do you think it's important for believers who have been touched by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, whose lives have been dramatically changed? Why do you think it's important for us to testify of him?
You know, I think of the church, you know, I'm thinking, you know, and they say to the church, Pastor, I got to testify. I got a testimony. See, because the testimony shows the relationship. The testimony shows the relationship and the development and the growth from yourself and with the one that you're testifying of. Brother Arp, I thought as the defined testimony on your show, I go with that definition in a legal construct, you know, because when you testify, you're bearing witness, but it also gives to let the enemy know that there are those that you're going to have to kill. You know, I don't care what you say. It's like when they came to Jesus, you know, they came to the man about Jesus, about all these. He said, I don't know what you say, but yesterday I was blind. Today I can see. Yesterday I was dumb, but today I can speak. The other day I was a leper, I was lame, but today I'm striving to be a healed human being from the sicknesses of a sick world that have destroyed us and have made us other than ourselves, made us lepers from sin and the burden that the minister taught that's on the earth in the garden, that this burden must be rid from the earth, because it's that burden of sin and wickedness that have us in the condition. So when we testify, and the people that you have on your show that testify, we want this to get to the enemy to know that no matter what, under any circumstance, the same way he stand, by the grace of Allah, we want to stand. And the same backup that he has is the same backup that we have. So we go take that 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So that's how I stand, brother. At the end of the day, you know, the testimony is critical. And then when we're tested on the testimony, see, because we're going to be tested on the testimony, you know, and, you know, there's a saying I heard the minister say, I've tried and is ready to be tried again, or something to that effect. So we've been tested, but Satan, Iblis, the devil, our enemy, the white man's children, he always got another test for us. So to test our testimony and to see, are we true in our testimony? Our trust in Allah, His Christ, and His Messiah in our midst. I thank Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because when I go out, I don't believe that the enemy can do anything to me that God won't allow it to happen. You know, I say this in closing to those young folks that may be watching. I don't know what our viewership is, but if it's just one of the things that always touch me is when you grow in Islam, then you're always prepared to be better. The thought left me, Brother Willie, that I was about to say. I was about to say to the young people, well, I'll just say this. Always work to be the best that we can be, because it is the time that we live in that we're being sifted by a wicked enemy. Maybe Allah didn't want me to say that point, or just maybe my memory just ain't the best. What was the question you asked me, Brother Willie? Just to...
No, it was man, I didn't forgot what was we started off talking about what was his the minister's greatest impact on you, and you talked about with your family. But it's interesting. There's another question I wanted to ask you. I thought you was about to, Allah was leading you to it. Like, you've been in the Nation of Islam for some decades, right? Like, and you and I know that this path of walking to become one with God, for people who are in the Nation of Islam, not in the Nation of Islam, what advice would you give to those who may be getting weary, into telling them not to give up? You know, what has kept you going?
The trust in the minister, brother. The 100% trust in the minister. And I think that's where I was trying to go, and it's got away from me, is the confidence and trust that I have in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. And my words are not forming for whatever reason. What the advice I would give to young people is to know that as we move forward, the trials that we have, you know, we want to minimize those in ourselves. And oftentimes it's the simple things that we don't follow that will actually save our lives. And, you know, we live in a time where we're talking about social distancing. We're talking about wearing masks. These are some simple things that no Muslim that follow the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan should be disobedient in this case. You know, no brother or sister that say they're a registered member of the Nation of Islam should not find ourselves obeying his instruction 100%. And so we have to really know that what we have is 100% true and perfect guidance for you and I. And that's why in San Diego, the believers have been so great in our food distribution, even in a time of this pandemic. 15 to 20 of the believers every Tuesday and Friday, and even on Wednesday and different time come out, and we have our food drive through our nonprofit. We're part of our nonprofit, I My Brother's Keeper, where the mosque and another part of our Paving Great Futures go out and serve. So I think I tell the believers, you know, trust in Allah and be obedient. And sometimes, you know, you have to put your own thought down and pick up the thought. When I'm going to make a decision, I don't think about Waliullah, I think about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that helps me tremendously, because if I lean up on my own understanding, I make a whole bunch more mistakes. And so my testimony is that, you know, the mistakes that I've made have guided me. And I've noticed, I know what I was going to say, you know, I lived, you know, in the Nation of Islam as I'm coming up. You know, I've lived outside of the law before I came in the Nation of Islam, and I've lived outside of the law while I'm in the Nation of Islam. You know, there are things that I've done, you know, that I could have done better, just, you know, and I've learned that, you know, that obedience is the greatest form of sacrifice. And so I was so grateful of two periods in the Nation of Islam for me. And Allah says in the Holy Quran that when you commit a sin, if the messenger, you pray to Allah and ask for forgiveness, and the messenger asks for forgiveness for you, then you will have that forgiven. So there's two times in the Nation of Islam that I'm so grateful to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for. The first one was in 2003, and that's when we had our meeting in May, I think 30th, 28th, 29th, and 30th, something like that, just before
for 3 days.
For 3 days. And at the end of that, he said he will allow us to renew our membership in the Nation of Islam. That was one. Number two was 2007 at the farm, when we had the titles were taken. But what's so sad is that many of us in the nation was so dissatisfied with leadership that what we could remember is 30 minutes or 45 minutes of title being taken, but didn't look at all of the other instructions that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan gave to us in a 3-hour guidance in that time, in economics and development and everything else like that. And so we still call ourselves students, and I'm honored to call myself a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But one of the greatest points was 2011 in Form 4. And when the messenger gave us the opportunity, that was his prayer. Because when we fill out the Form 4, we're being made new. And so everything from 2003 to 2007 to 2011, I've striven to get myself back on point into the oneness with Allah. I know when I'm inside the law, I feel like I've heard the minister say, like I can drag elephants or lions down the street, and that's how I feel when I know I'm living right. But Allah warns us the believer never feels secure from the chastisement of Allah. So don't feel because you're living right, you're doing good, that you're, outside of punishment for deeds that we have done, or we're outside of a trial or a test from Allah, as he said that we're tried severely once or twice a year. So my guidance to the believer and to anybody listening, that righteousness uplifts the nation. It is righteousness that we need today. The time of wickedness is over. God is present, and our obedience to the man in our midst, the servant and messenger of Allah, the Messiah in our midst, that unifier to bring us back to Allah, will be the success that we'll have. My guidance, flee to Allah, that we may put, as the minister said in the closing, we may put Satan to a perpetual flight inside ourselves and outside of ourselves, because we want to settle on the best part of the planet Earth.
And in beautiful words and a beautiful way to close, and the spirit in this, you said it in the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I want to read some of the feedback that people have given from Zoom. And for those people who are on Facebook, please take an opportunity to type in the comments. If you can do so right now, what did you gain, or what are you gaining from this video, from this interview? And for those who are going to be watching this later, because a lot of people catch it on a replay, when you watch this, I want you to type what did you gain from our brother's testimony? Someone sent this. They said, the brother is a real brother to the believers. He gives the clothes off of his back to help you, and he tries to be a reflection of the minister to the city. Someone said that. Then someone else said, these incidents, you were talking about something. They said, these incidents show us so plainly how humane the minister is and the wisdom in which he treats us. They said that in response to something that you shared. Then someone else said, we thank you too, speaking to you, my beloved sister, for your service for our nation. And the minister, somebody said that, it says this, it says, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to labor in support of this brother for over 22 years. Praise be to Allah. And someone said that they call him the people's lawyer here in San Diego. So that's what they call you. And that's a blessing, man, because that means you're defending our people like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is. And his closing statement, was there anything that you wanted to say that I may have not asked a question that can bring it out you? So here's your opportunity. If there's anything you want to say that you didn't get the opportunity to say.
No, I just want to say I'm grateful to Allah for blessing me to live in this time with his Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I'm grateful to serve in the city with the believers here in the city of San Diego. I'm honored. I'm grateful to you for having me on the show. I've been truly blessed in my growth in Islam. And so I just want to be better each and every day and to be a greater reflection of him. I don't know of anything else. I love being asked questions, more so than anything else. I see some of my laborers on the line. I see my brother and friend, brother student Captain David, who I've served with and known him for over 30 years. I see Sister Mary. I know she's the one that made 22 years, because ain't no other sister served with me in 22 years in the city. So I know exactly who that was that said that. I'm blessed, Brother Willie, because while I'm not in a city that have a predominantly Black population, I'm in a city that have Black people with a lot of love for our people and a very diverse group. And I just pray Allah, as we talked with the laborers the other day, and I said to them, I feel that I need to do more at this time, because it's so easy when we are, as I'm going to use our terminology, when not sheltered in place, but when we are in our chamber. It is so easy. See, being in your chamber and being sheltered in place is two different things. Being sheltered in place means you're watching TV, playing video games, and sleeping and eating a whole bunch of food. Being in your chamber means you're studying, you're reading, you're reflecting on scripture, you're developing your relationship with your family, through conversation. You're doing things that make you grow. That's being in your chamber, that when we're able to come out of the chamber, then our light will shine and help to develop the city or wherever we may be. And I said to the laborers and even to Brother Arf and others, and I was talking that I feel there's so much more that I need to be doing at this time while we're in the chamber to reach the people, because the Messiah is present and I don't want to fall asleep in the garden. I don't want to be one that's afraid. I don't want to be one that is quiet at this time. And I doggone sure don't want to be the one that will betray the Messiah and our people at this time. So I want to do as much as I can, and I have to find more ways of getting this word out to our people of the minister's address to us. So that's my last word. Let's continue to push who we are, because we are, when all else failed, then come Islam. And a lot of times people think we're talking about a religion, but we want to use the definition of the word for Islam. When all else fails, come Islam, come peace, come submission, come obedience to the will of God. It is the kingdom that's being brought forth, and we got to have people that's a reflection and example of righteousness in our thoughts, our deeds, and our action. Let's reflect the humble minister Louis Farrakhan. Thank you, Brother Willie, for this opportunity.
Thank you, my brother. And you're in that beautiful city, man. San Diego has the best weather I've ever experienced.
I'll go show the waterfall. You were talking about the waterfall.
You see him.
You see the water. You see the waterfall.
Yeah, we were able to see a little of it over the pictures. Y'all see the waterfall in his backyard. It's a very beautiful city, man. And thank you for the work that you're doing there. And that's the picture when he came to your home?
No, this is not. This is another picture that my wife and I took with him. Might have been in Buffalo. I look a little slim. Now that's Los Angeles, I think, because I think I see Eric in the background. My wife actually made that bow tie as well. She don't make bow ties. She ain't taking no orders. She got enough she do already. Trust me. I can refer you to some other bow tie makers, but she did a great job on that one. Brother Will, let me be quiet because I love to talk. Love you.
Oh no, listen, man, listen. And we all for those stories. So let me just do these. For those people that are in Facebook, continue to leave messages. See, we got our brother Abdul Qiyam there. He's been posting, and others. What did you gain from our brother's testimonies? Because you shared a lot, man. And I think, one of the benefits of having these things stored up, now when we get believers who feel like they've disappointed Allah, they've disappointed the minister, I can give them, I can say, hey, go watch this interview, and you go from, like you were saying, you felt like you disappointed him, then you were still on his mind that he sent word to you, hey, we want somebody to go to, he had to approve of it, you going to the West Coast where you were the regional captain, and then you come back down the line where he gives you the name Waliullah, a protecting friend of God, which is very, very powerful, man. And I think if we go back and we listen to this testimony, one of the things that you say all the way through, what gets your supreme trust in the honorable minister Louis Farrakhan. You said that was consistent. My supreme trust, my trust. And you see it, And as we get ready to close, let me do these announcements for those people who are on. And for those people, just want to let everybody know in regards again, go back. So on next next Sunday, our sister was on as well, Sister Naira. I may be pronouncing it right, but I'll make sure I pronounce it right the next time. She's going to be here on next Sunday. And inshallah, in September, we have a mighty good, we're getting some big guests. All of the guests are big. We got some surprises, man. We got definitely some good surprises. And on next Thursday, please tune in. And we've been getting a lot of great response to this on social media. I think this topic is very relevant as it relates to dealing with diabetes and COVID. We have to, while the government and the medical healthcare officials do what they need to do, we still have to take some opportunity and take some control of our actual life. So I know you say you like to talk, but you got another testimony, you got another story you want to share, something you experienced with the minister? Trying to get this all on tape.
No, I think, brother, one another great trip I had when we went to Benin with Mother Tynetta. We went into some of the prisons. That's one thing with the minister, man. Wherever we go, he go and visit in some of the most incredible places. When we were in Jamaica, one of the things that I thought that was critical when we were in Jamaica, he went to where his father show the type of love the minister have, right? And I actually, real quick, we're in Jamaica in 2014. We went down to Law Street, where his father grew up, because he never knew his father. And so we went to where his father was born, where he grew up in Law Street. We went down there, man. People flooded out, came out. And so they were asked for the minister, this, that, and the other. And I forgot how many people were there. But the next day, the minister gave me funds to go down and to give every single person a couple $1,000, whatever it might be in Jamaica. What you don't, 1,000 Jamaican dollars, 2,000 Jamaican dollars, that's sometime a week's salary for somebody. Wow. But he gave me money, and we gave to every person. We told him we coming back now, and some of them probably showed up that wasn't there the first time, but it didn't make a difference. The minister said, brother, go down, and he shared with them. And we went back the next day, and on his behalf, we gave out to the people all kind of funds on his behalf. But that's just the way the minister is. No matter where he goes, he's uplifting what we call the little man, which really is the big man, because the scriptures say that the poor heard him gladly. Not just sometimes the physically poor, but the poor in knowledge, they hear him gladly. And so he's always giving. And that's another thing I get from the minister, to be quite honest. I get the spirit of giving from him. And sometimes some people tell me I give to a fault. But, to me, in the supreme wisdom, and what will you give to see this day? And the messenger, the exalted Christ, I give all that I have and everything in my power to see the day which I prayed 379 years, when Allah will bring the heaven into hell in his own good time. Well, that's how I feel. I give all that I have and everything in my power to see Islam established in this city, in America, the world, or wherever the messenger of God send me. Not going to Allah warns us, you don't want to give to your detriment. But, I thank Allah because he have blessed me. No matter what I've given, he have always replaced it manyfold over. So the spirit of giving, I've also gotten from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But my mother tell me I've had that type of spirit from when I was a little boy, when she told me stories when I was a child and how I would give. I don't remember that, but I know I watched the messenger and how he gives, and I try to help as many as I can in the same way by Allah's grace.
Wow, and you just look, I'm glad we did ask you for one more thing, because you were able to share that testimony that if you didn't share it, the minister doesn't talk about the good that he does. And he gave you all cash or money to go back into to that parts of Jamaica and just to give funds to people. And see, that's part of the testimony. This is a part of why we do this show, so that people who have experienced that can say that. So now we can record that. So when people talk about the minister, when they try to loop the minister with some of these other pastors who feed themselves and not their flock, we have first person testimony. Say, here's a man that gave money to his helpers to go and just give it to people who he never even knew. And the minister never talks about that. So thank you for that testimony, my brother. We're going to download this and inshallah put it on YouTube, and we'll definitely send it. But thank you, man, and the believers and people who are watching it on social media. They're hitting all of the love and like icons, so they're really loving it. Thank you, my brother, and may Allah continue to bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wa alaikum salam. Peace and bless you and your family, brother Willie. Love y'all. Assalamu alaikum.
Love you too. Wa alaikum salam.